Hello and welcome back to the Metropole Grid. My name is Andre.
And I'm Patrick.
And thanks so much for tuning in. We have now hit the top cut of Canadian Nationals 2023 here in Montreal at the Silver Goblin.
That's right.
We went from 39 players playing 10 rounds of single-sided Swiss down to just 8 players. Things are about to get pretty high stakes.
That's right. If someone loses just 2 games, they're out of the top cut entirely.
Yeah, the format here, this is called double elimination. So it's slightly different, not that far different from single-sided Swiss in some ways, but you're going to have matchups where each player only plays one side. And if you take a loss, that's okay. You can take one loss, but then you'll continue to play against other players with kind of the same standings as you until you've taken 2 losses. At that point, you are going to exit the top cut.
Yeah.
So it's about somewhere between 6 to 8 rounds, depending, and we'll be left with crowning a Canadian national champion. Maybe goes undefeated, maybe takes 1 loss, but again, 2 losses, you're out.
That's right. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, this is our first matchup. Some very interesting things also to pay attention to. Those are deck lists. These are submitted at the beginning of competitive events, and you are allowed to see your opponent's deck lists in the first 5 minutes before an event starts, before a match starts.
Right. Only in the top cut.
Yes.
Because at that point, it's kind of assumed that people might have watched a stream or been maybe scouting or talking to their friends. It's only fair for everyone to kind of have full information about each other's deck lists at this point.
Yeah, information disseminates if you talk to people who, so they want to keep it on like a pretty even playing field. And it actually, I'm a big fan of it. It kind of turns Netrunner more into a game of chess.
Absolutely. I actually like it quite a bit too.
Yeah, there's like still the bluffing element, but you know what the bluffing options are. So it definitely impacts the game.
Yep.
Now, very important to know, on the left here, we've seen him before on the stream. This is Chromatically, again on Hoshiko. Chromatically's been playing, I think, the cleanest Hoshiko we've seen to date, and he ended 3rd after all the Swiss rounds.
That's right.
So that means, because he's the higher seed against Brandon, we'll talk about Brandon in a second, he came in 6th spot, that Steven was allowed to look at both of the matchups, all of the deck lists, and decide which side he wanted to play in this first matchup.
Right.
That is a benefit of coming higher in the Swiss.
Right. So he looked at the deck list and determined his Hoshiko has a good chance against Brandon's AgInfusion.
Exactly.
For example. And that's what all the other matchups in the top cut were doing in this first round.
Yeah, that is something unique to the first round. Now, on the right, that is Brandon, also known as the King. Brandon, a player coming in from Toronto. And Brandon is such a fantastic guy.
Yes.
Very specifically, Brandon is a player of low vision. So he works together. So that's actually you, Pat, in the top right.
That's me in the top right.
Yeah. So if you've seen Brandon play, Brandon plays incredibly competitive high-tier Netrunner,
Yes.
but as a player with low vision, he partners with a sighted player who works as the title that's called the Oracle.
Yes.
Can you describe the Oracle? Because
yeah,
you were
of
with
course.
him all weekend.
Yeah, so the Oracle is a really fascinating position. And my position as a sighted player is basically to read the names of cards aloud, because Brandon has basically memorized every card better than I could. And to a certain extent also help kind of arrange the board so it's clear to everyone else where things are supposed to be, and sometimes reading the board state, like, oh, there's however many advancement tokens, or this is how many credits you have.
Yeah, managing counters, stuff like that, that can be a bit,
A lot of what you'll see is me kind of leaning into Brandon's ear as he draws cards, just to whisper, okay, that's a Hansei review or whatever.
Exactly.
As the game goes on.
Yeah, and you were with him all weekend playing the different decks, and Brandon is a very competitive player, made the top cut, super excited to see it. He's playing an AgInfusion, mind you, that is 59 cards. This was, again, in the 2308 ban list, so while you might expect Keeling AgInfusion, this one is slightly different. This is more of a glacier AgInfusion that is trying to score points out.
Yes, it's not a Keeling-based deck, and we'll see how it plays over the course of this game, of course.
Yeah.
It looks like we're already starting.
Yeah, I think we saw some mulligans, and we're going to start there with a Spin Doctor. A bit of an uglier open. It means your hand is not perfect.
Yep.
And this is going to be a bit of a slow-moving deck. This is a 59-card deck. That means we're playing 24 points of agendas. Now, again, opponents know what's in each player's list, so we're going to start here with a Hansei review to get some credits on the table. But this deck is going to take, I think, the first 10 turns maybe to set up before it's going to consider scoring out. And it's going to score out behind some of the biggest ice in the format. And then on top of that, with defensive upgrades, things like Anoetic Void and Adrian Seiss.
Adrian Seiss, a new card from Automata Initiative, I'm sure we'll see. Yeah, this is a deck about kind of grinding out your opponent's resources before you really even start to roll those agendas out.
So we're going to see again, AgInfusion's ability, it's a pretty long ability. In short, what it says is once per turn, when the runner is approaching an unresed piece of ice, the corporation can trash it to force the runner to encounter a piece of ice on a different server.
Yes.
And there's a lot of really important words there. Firstly, when they encounter a piece of ice, that ice has to be res. Otherwise, they can just jack out if it's unres because they pass the ice, because res can only be resed, can only be resed on approach.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. So
it's a good way of basically ending a run. Functionally, it ends a run that's going to be successful elsewhere. It potentially sends the runner onto very taxing or destructive ice, like sending them towards an Anansi on a different server. It basically means any unrezzed piece of ice can become an Anansi once an Anansi is rezzed.
And that's a big part of the game plan, is to get some of that scariest ice res as the outermost on a single server.
Absolutely.
So anytime you run HQ, and if you don't want to res the ice on HQ, you just say, I'm trashing this, introduce yourself to the Anansi on archives even, which is a pretty interesting trade. It is a bit expensive on the ice that you're trashing. A lot of these decks are running 22, 24 pieces of ice. Maybe in the 59 cards, you're running even more than that.
Yep.
And off the top,
Bacterial Programming. That's 3-pointer.
We've seen this card do so much work in the tournament so far. Now, very importantly is that Steven here has full information. This is not going to be a punitive list. Now, this list is on your digital life, one of the best combinations with the Bacterial Programming.
Yes, and I'm sure we'll see that. Like, you can put 7 cards into your HQ and then play your digital life for a huge credit swing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So that's 7 cards. We're going to decide. You generally want to put at least 1 back on top of the deck so you know R&D is safe. But with 7, again, you pull 6 to hand. That's a lot of cards to set up with. And this is a pretty skill-intensive card to fire.
It really is. And of course, it's all the more skill-intensive. Like working together with Brandon, I was just really impressed. I don't remember what cards I put back on the order, but he does. So I was just whispering the names and he would put them back in the order he chose and would remember them. He wouldn't need to be reminded too.
His memory is absolutely killer.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't mention this, but this is totally worth shouting out, is that if you ever are interested to play either online Netrunner organized play, in-person organized play, and if there's anything that you think is
an obstacle, a hurdle to you
that allows you not to play to what you think is, the fullest capability.
Yeah.
Contact, please, your organized play person locally, your tournament organizers, even the Null Signal Games folks, because they've gone to, pretty great lengths to make sure that people can get into this game.
It's even enshrined in the rules that you can ask for an Oracle if you are a player with low sight, with low vision.
The term Oracle has always been like the fun name we used for this position, and it's now in the Null Signal Games official rules, which is amazing.
Very cool, yeah.
And there you go. We're set up a fermenter on Steven's side, but we're going to riposte there with your digital life. Yep. Cards in hand, it's a big number. So we're already up to 16 credits on, I think, turn 2 or turn 3.
Double. And there's another one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're up to 2 Anansis and a hedge fund to spare.
So that's amazing. That is where you get a bit scared. And Steven's deck, mind you, that's a big thing, an overarching thing when it comes to these Hoshiko decks, is they actually have a lot of flexibility to play different matchups. You see in his hand, he has a card there, the Twinning. And these sort of cards, I think, are fantastic to the matchup. While AgInfusion is allowed to, trash ice to stop things like a big Stargate run, heaven forbid a Finality, which is the one of in the list, these are the sort of cards that generate multi-axis that you can generate more value while still setting up, because this is not the sort of, I think, Hoshiko game where you're going to see a lot of runs. It's going to be a lot of, very well-timed runs.
Yeah, well-timed, impactful runs.
Yes.
Which normally AgInfusion would frustrate, but things like the Twinning, AgInfusion can't quite work as a counter to those.
Exactly, yeah. So it's really nice. So we're seeing Hoshiko weave in and out there, a setup with the Liberated Counts. Again, huge money attached to a non-interactive card. Gachapon's been used aggressively on the end of the Corpse turn to go find things like, I'm not sure your Dreamnet you're excited about. More to find a Paladin Puemo early would be pretty nice.
Yeah. We also saw Brandon's playing with subliminal messaging, which he's pulled back to hand. That's going to make a little bit of money. Because when you're playing AgInfusion, the runner does not want to make a lot of runs because every run could be so taxing or so dangerous. So that's a free credit most turns.
And this card actually, I think, has a lot more even deeper nuance with the deck. It's like one of the easiest cards to destroy with Hansei Review.
Oh, true.
It buffs your digital life because there's a lot of turns you end up with 8 cards, 9 cards in hand after they all return to hand.
And exactly. It's a free discard because it's going to come back to your hand.
Yeah.
It's great.
So Gachapon getting cracked, we look at the top 6. We can install a program or a virtual. There's the Paladin. Again,
Paladin's pretty good.
Such a strong econ card to find early. Dreamnet also an option, still 2308 ban list.
And Unity is also an option, but I'm not sure if we know what icebreakers we want yet.
In terms of the icebreakers, right? Like Unity on its own early, not very good if you have no other icebreakers. And you're expecting to pay a lot of money to get through like a Bump or a NASA or a Teeny. I think a Teeny's are on the list for sure. It looks like we're actually going for the Dreamnet. So maybe we have a Puemo in hand. Archives, mind you, is open, and there's a big incentive here for Archives to be iced up, because now that run on Archives is actually worth 2 card draw, 2 credits when you get the flip. You lose a credit. From the digital side, it gets even better, but we're going to be shuffling back a bunch of that economy. We did see there, too, there is Banhars. There's 3 Banhars in the list.
Of course.
And a really nice way to charge some early Cerbers without having the appropriate breakers, something that Hoshiko is not super consistent producing. In this matchup, though, with things like Anansis, really hard to just send
because we saw... I certainly saw, playing with Brandon, at least one player who was using Bangar to run into an Anansi, which ends up being 6 net damage.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Which is an unsuggestible amount of net damage.
I think in through Swiss there was 3 players who died to it. One player twice.
Which is good. I like that, because Bangar is such a great card but that is how it's balanced. It's balanced because sometimes it's the worst possible decision you can make.
And there you go, Hoshiko on Archives. That's a very common play you're going to see through Chromatically's Hoshiko play.
Get
Just
some easy accesses to chart to do the Hoshiko thing.
whatever server is open, that's generally good enough because you want to stay flipped. You also do see a Carmen in hand, and I think there's one Carmen in the list, potentially one Noom, and both of those breakers are relatively good into some of the higher strength sentries, but this deck is running 3 Anansi, 3 Mlinzi, and Carmen now coming down for 3 credits. You deal with Anansi for only 5 credits, which is
great.
nearly the best you can ask for in the format.
Absolutely.
So we're going to flip again. That's going to be 2 credits up front. We're going to lose 1 for a card draw, but now Brandon has a huge reason to ice up Archives, and I do not know if that Subliminal is going to be coming back to hand consistently with that Archives open. So not only is it good for the runner, it's bad for the corporation to let those runs. Now, at remote server, there wasn't a Rashida. We're looking at a bunch of defensive upgrades and Oetic, Adrian, but a lot of these agendas are 5/3s. There are, I think, a full set of off-world offices as well.
Yes, I believe so. So we're looking at 24 agenda points. Is that
That's
the
for
assumption?
59 cards, and that's totally noteworthy. 59 card decks are not very consistent. They're not very popular. The idea generally in most card games, the smaller your deck, the more consistent you are. But here we just have enough cards, enough big chunky ice, enough defensive upgrades that you feel you can get away with having just more max.
That's right. And part of the game plan is making the game go long, draining the runner's resources, and so maybe a bigger deck is not so terrible.
Yeah, throughout the week, again, because you were playing as the Oracle for helping out Brandon, a lot of the games were late games where it was, you start scoring in the later part of the game. Some games go into the time and you win being 6 points to 3. Dirty Laundry, mind you, on Archives. There's that sort of run value. So denying Subliminal, getting a DreamNet card draw and a credit, 3 credits here.
Yeah,
Heaven forbid we find
huge
a
amount of
leech.
value here.
Yeah. The receiver going to transition in there. Hermes as well as the console. Very interesting. It's hard to score 5/3s with a Hermes threat.
Oh boy, it's really rough. You can't leave a double advanced card on the table. It's just going to get popped back to hand.
Yeah, let alone when you score out. If they just score out a 5/3, you can return that ice on R&D.
Yep.
So
Here's
there's a banner.
Banar.
Again,
Okay, so next turn it's going to be activated.
pretty difficult if you have to
You're going to
deal with
want to
spiders.
be pretty sure you're not going to see a spider god.
Yeah, there's the Hermes again. A new card from the Tomina Initiative, the latest set. It's only been out for about a month to date.
A new card, but somehow so familiar.
This one's going to be really exciting in the matchup. Again,
Yeah.
bouncing defensive upgrades, let alone advanced agendas. And we're just getting that sort of like, this is the minimal amount of running we can do to push ourselves forward.
Exactly.
But the huge flexibility here with Hoshiko, with all of these cards that are good on, good into Glacier, good into aggro, good into some mid-range. And there we go. I think that was... Did Brandon just purge? I think he might have just purged. So we're going to get some credits coming in off the top. Again, Archive's still wide open, having to discard a card. And so now at 22 credits, you can assume that ice. I think the deck does have Fuji's in it, if I'm not mistaken. No, sorry, it doesn't. So
It's bacterial.
and
Send a message. Yeah. Send
So-
a message is good with, of course, the Anansi's. Not that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we'll see.
It's very good. But the thing with outplaying Fuji is that some of the ice that just does net damage is not as defensive as some other ice.
That's true.
Because with the Fuji threat, you can access it with 1 card in hand.
Yeah.
Now there's that leech. Again, Archives now so much value. Leech
And-
token, DreamNet, card and credit, keeping Hoshiko digital.
Just discarding a hedge fund.
Yeah. That makes you a bit interested in what's in hand here.
Yeah. But it's not like Brandon needs a huge amount of money. Although, since all the ice, as we've described, is very expensive, maybe he really does.
But we mentioned this before, just rezzing 1 big ice as the outermost changes the game. So you're seeing here,
As soon as one Anansi is rezzed, every face down piece of ice becomes a single encounter Anansi.
and there's the twinning. We don't have a Paladin.
Yeah, we don't have a way to
charge that?
charge it yet.
I think that's the only option in the deck is there's only Paladin Plemo, I think, to work with twinning. I'm not sure if there's anything else. But second Fermenter now, both going to be on the same amount. So Purge now has 3 targets. But you like this, he's down to 0 credits. That's actually kind of perfect when you're playing Hoshiko because you can't lose the credit if you don't have the credit.
That's true.
You can always do Hoshiko before the daily cast. But now the interesting thing here is understanding that he's setting up for 5 turns from now, 6 turns from now. Brandon might have a window here to push with, looks like maybe 2 defensive upgrades. If you do advance here, we might be a bit short to contest. So we might have a window now. If you do score out of 5/3, R&D will be open.
Yeah.
HQ will be open.
But you also want to, because of the Hermes, you've got to be aware you've got to maybe double ice or save yourself a click on the scoring turn.
Yeah. And looks like that is an advance in the server. I think a card was just installed on double. Now, as a single advance, off-world office is what you're largely expecting.
Yep.
And that is a 4/2 again. It gives you 7 credits. Money does go pretty quickly when the average res cost of your ice in your deck is about 6 to 7, I would say.
Yep.
So huge play here whether Steven wants to contest this again. With Banhar, you have some ability to charge, as dangerous as it can be. But even just running HQ, you're expecting, again, the density on a 59 card deck that's only running, I think, what is it, 9 agendas is actually pretty good in terms of like, it's hard to find the agenda sometimes.
I just want to, so there was some my hands mixing up those cards in the server, like I was playing a shell game. I just want to establish, I would just make sure the advancement was on the card.
Yeah, that can be.
That it should be. And also that like Chromatically still knows what order those cards were installed in.
Yeah.
So that is why they are arranged that way and why we're doing some sleight of hand.
So Gachamon's coming down there. I do think also in hand you see Awaken Plan. There it's coming down again. That does do immediate damage with one card in hand, perfectly making it a Steel Skin Scarring.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what you want to see.
Yeah, that's a sick draw. 3
That
hit pushes you
strike fund
forward.
is perfect.
I
kind of want to keep the Steel Skins in hand for the runs, especially with Bangar.
You're not feeling bad about that. And now, again, Awaken Plan, just like the Twinning, it's another multi-access card that you don't have to commit to, and you get value when the run is successful. Now, this means you're going to be a lot of running on HQ.
You're going to want to run HQ.
Just Archives, mind you. Dirty Laundry.
Archives, also fine.
Fermenter, DreamNet. I was so impressed with Awaken Plant through this entire day. Again, Awaken Plant as a criminal card to me finds it's a bit harder to play because they're expecting you to run.
People are naturally icing up HQ.
Yeah. But in Anarch, this gives you so much value from that run off of HQ. We'll see here if Brandon can score out again, triple advance, you will have a wide open HQ, and that's an issue when the Wake comes down. So if you're holding 2 agendas, maybe you can get a Wake charge. It's hard to get a Twinning charge this exact turn. Maybe we'll find a Paladin off the Gachapon. I think that's probably for the best. So 3rd ice there. Mind you, Hermes can make that a bit expensive. You have to reinstall those, but I think we're going to see 2nd ices on some centrals because it's hard to score out here. 2nd Vents, maybe a 5-3, maybe a 4-2 that we want to score with a click left. This deck doesn't have Biovault, so we know any card that's advanced has to be a defensive.
Yeah, no NGO vault, no NGO front, no Biovault.
Yeah, it has to be an agenda, excuse me. So we're looking at 6 there.
Oh yeah, this is our Gachapon at the end of the corpse turn.
I think it's just the Unity is the only option. We have a DreamNet, but Unity for 1 credit, not too bad. So we're going to remove a DreamNet from the game.
Makes sense.
And a Steel Skin, not a bad card when you face checking, but the other options were better. And talk about other options.
Hippo is going to be pretty valuable. Yeah.
So we haven't mentioned it yet, but Hippo is one of the most important cards in the AgInfusion matchup. We mentioned how AgInfusion wants to get 1 big ice res on the outermost of a server, and Hippo specifically is ice destruction that can only target the outermost ice on a server.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if they spend, 8 credits, if Brandon spends 8 credits resing an Anansi, you just go take that Anansi down, and suddenly there's no more teeth on that AgInfusion ability. Fermenter's ticking up. 3 a pop each, 6 credits. Daily cast still working. We're chugging through a deck there. Again, Archives just getting a single ice denies a lot of forward momentum off of this Hoshiko. So we'll see if Brandon has the ice on the list. Probably a fair bit of ice in the deck.
Yeah, there's a lot of ice in the deck. I'm not sure what he's been drawing though.
I think there's a 3rd Hippo in hand. We might see that hit the table and just charge HQ. The only thing we can't break right now are barriers, but the barriers are not scary. You can let the face checks fire. You have to be prepared for, massive sentries, Lindsay's, Anansi's, Sites and Tons I don't think made the list. And the code gates can be equally bad with things like a teeny hurting you as much as the threat text isn't online.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what barriers are in the list.
Tattoo.
Oh, tattoo. Yeah,
and bronze. There's big bronze.
Oh, Brawn. Yeah, Brawn is a pretty effective one. Brawn is really having a heyday.
Yes.
Right now.
So hopefully the leech is good. But
all right, there's a Malinzi. That's going to be a pretty taxing ice.
Giving the runner choices. Now, this is basically just a budget Anansi. While you don't have to break all the subroutines, you do break it for 5 still, and we're just going to hippo that out of the game. So now HQ wide open. And this is such an important turn here. The bounce returning the potential agenda to HQ means that it will be in an open HQ. We're getting so much value off all the triggers that Steven has been setting up for the last while here. But even if you want to score out, HQ will just be open.
No.
Bacterial off the top.
Oh, man. So the Hermes forces that advanced card to be bounced back to hand.
Not only returning probably the winning agenda to hand. Now, the great thing here is that Brandon can look at the top 7 and now can just add all of them to HQ. So if there's only one agenda, it's now 1 in 12 as opposed to 1 in 5 or whatever the numbers come out to.
True. Yeah. You can really dilute your hand. You can prevent the follow-up.
Yeah. But Steven could easily have it here. Again, just smash HQ is what he's going to be doing regardless. Wants those Wake charges to threaten the top of R&D. But again, the 2 ice on HQ is probably what you need. And you need it sooner than later. You know there's 2 hippos still left in the deck. Going through 7 again, draw, you can trash, you can put them on top of R&D. There's no way that Steven's not just smashing to R&D here. It's such a good run.
Not HQ?
Sorry, HQ, excuse me. Yeah,
absolutely.
Such a good run. Wake Implant, you're getting those leech counters, which again, a lot of the ice is high strength. That is worth a credit at a minimum, sometimes 2 credits when it comes to the breakpoints
Yeah,
on
depending on the breaker.
on Carmen. Yeah. So that's, I think, he might have put some back on top of R&D, but a lot of cards in hand. And we know that the card that was bounced has to be an agenda. It's in here somewhere.
Yep.
Oh, lost a
That's it.
Hansei. Immediately, I like this. Steven looked away as fast as he can,
Yeah.
understanding that. But that Hansei just fell out of hand. That obviously can't happen. We're going to repair that.
Yep.
Just want to make sure that was the card that was dropped. It was. Mm-hmm. So shuffle up again. I think we're holding a lot, plus 10 cards in hand here.
Yeah.
A lot of value.
And also making sure that the cards are facing down
Yeah.
there. And
You don't have a dice big enough, so we're going to break it in half and then break it in half once more. Single axis. Karuna. Yo, this card sees no play.
Uh-huh.
The numbers on this, pretty reasonable into a Carmen meta.
they really actually are, aren't they?
Yeah. If there's not support, that's 4 credits for Carmen.
The 2 subs is just nice enough,
Yeah.
I think.
We're going back, though. Again, it's still possibly in here. Now, Banhar. Going to keep those down. Banhar has been technically used. Not that it matters. No ice on HQ. Single axis. Got to roll that one a couple times.
Okay.
Again, could be just the
That's a
Hansei.
Hansei review. That's fine.
Back in hand there. I think that's the last one. We dropped Hippo for click 1. So Brandon's going to survive here. Again, really hard spot to be down 6 points. Understanding, too, that at least Hermes still going to hurt if you have to score on an agenda. But now you have a lot of problems on centrals. And as soon as you score an agenda, now if you don't double ice R&D,
Exactly.
Steven can send it to C4.
Yeah, you need to double ice, or you need to really play around the kind of quick game that Hermes forces you to play.
Yeah, it's hard to score at 5-3s here. And this corp is a scoring out corp. Again, it's not keeling.
Okay.
This is actual glacier. You're going to need an ice on HQ if you don't want to lose more Awaken Plan charges, let alone the runs are just so good with DreamNet and support. And that's probably what you want. Yeah.
That's something.
So the agenda probably back in the remote server. The remote server, I would say, is largely out of reach. Now, Steven's only on 3 credits there. A lot of money offloaded on those double fermenters. There's still, I think, at least 4 credits on the Liberated. Daily Cash just finishing as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of money on the table. Like that.
There's access to a lot.
Here we go.
As much as the remote server is probably hard to run, especially if you're expecting to be Adrian and Anoetic, the deck is on Pinhole Threadings, that's for sure. And Pinhole Threading is a very interesting card in the context of AgInfusion if every server is iced up, which is not exactly there.
Pinhole Threading is very interesting. It means you can run hoping to trash a defensive upgrade, but then the AgInfusion bounce might put you on the server you're about to trash something in anyway. You know what?
No, but that actually works. Because
Okay.
Pinhole says you have to choose a different server. It actually ruins the Pinhole if you pinhole the server they want to trash.
That's what I'm trying to say. It was taking me too long.
No, it's a really good interaction.
All right.
So you do get to see that there. I think Steven was the only person at the tournament note-taking, and I love to see what his notes actually look like.
Oh, yeah, true.
Any card he accesses, he will write it down, cross it off when it's either drawn or played.
that's very
just
smart.
to make sure that you're tracking R&D breaks, stuff
And
like
that's
that.
another thing that we should mention, that it is totally within the rules to take notes during a game.
Oh, you should.
You can't take notes before a game. You can't. I don't think you can take.
You can't.
Well,
It's so goofy.
It's very difficult to. But also, you shouldn't bring notes into a game.
No, it
is
has to
what
be
I-
a clean page.
Yeah.
But it's so funny because you see a lot of times what Steven will do
Yeah.
is that he'll look, mind you, Liberated counts coming down still, just more money on the table. Of
course.
We have to find that Puemo because the twinning is not doing anything. But what often he'll do is he'll look at the deck list, and as soon as time starts, he'll scroll down what he remembered from the deck list that he thinks is the most important.
Oh,
So
cool.
it offshores that memory issue. Rashida in the remote server, so the agenda was still in hand, it seemed. Draw 3 again. We have Spin Doctors in the list. 1 is out, but that's the only card to be able to filter that agenda if you don't have anything smart to do with it.
Yes. I wonder if Brandon's digging for ice at this point, just because you want to double ice, you want to ice up archives, please.
Yeah, the second ice on HQ seems pretty important. Once another Hippo comes down, you res that 1 ice on HQ, and
that's
it's
an
open hunting season
Yeah,
again.
that's an upgrade on R&D. I don't like to put my upgrades there.
It's harder to see sometimes.
It's a bit hidden from people.
Yeah. Looks like a Spin
New
Doctor there.
server, yeah.
Might use that to carve a couple turns forward so we can get agendas out of the hand. We can control Flood again. There was a lot of card draw off the Bacterial.
Okay, we're
And
icing archives finally. There we go.
I think with the Bacterial, you don't want to draw another agenda, so it's probably the agendas one on top of R&D. So then from the Mandatories and the Rashidas, there's probably a couple agendas on HQ. So the Spin
would
Doctor
assume so, yeah.
is well timed. Yeah, finally that Archives Ice. So Adrian's Ice, tricky to deal with, gives you options still. No matter what happens, something happens that's good for the runner. And Anoetic is a bit of a different story. Another
Yeah.
also really good subliminal card, as much as they don't work on the turn.
Yeah, very true.
So we finally glaciered in. We're doing a count here again, looking for Paladin Puemo, the only way to unlock that twinning value. And now with the Gachapon, you are going to burn through your deck. It's not an Obokata world. That card did get banned out. So you don't have to be too precious about cards, but it looks like we're going to let that Gachapon just chill for a
Yeah,
turn.
and we there's more than one paladin in the deck. You wouldn't put only one paladin if twinning is part of your win condition.
HQ Manjin Banhar marked. Single ice here. If you drop the hippo, you can just send it, and we're going to crack the first fermenter. I think that's for a sizable 10 credits, if I'm not mistaken.
That's decent.
Yeah. The purge there was a pretty good spot. And while there's 2 Maviars in the list, Brandon had some more setup to do than just taking a turn off to purge, as much as I believe he did that earlier. Correct us if we're wrong.
I'm pretty sure he did. I think there was some aggressive purges when fermenters were just at like 3 counters or so.
So hippo is in hand. You know, a lot of times you don't want to show that. You want to put it down on the turn that it's important. Now we're running the remote server. I wouldn't expect anything else here besides a spin doctor. And there you go, spin rezzed.
Draw 2 cards.
Now you can crack this. It'll make the run unsuccessful. Not technically unsuccessful. Not either successful nor unsuccessful. It denies Hoshiko and
There never was a run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a run.
Well, there was a run, but also there was not a run.
So we're going to shuffle one face down again. We can imagine that to be an agenda. Again, very methodical, this deck. It's going to be a while. And you see no ice being rezzed, right? And that's a big thing about respecting, not allowing AgInfusion to get its ability online.
It's playing around the AgInfusion ability. Any ice that gets res is going to be hippoed.
Yeah. Finally, the Paladin from hand. We're going to get some more money. Again, we're up on 13 here. You're expecting to spend, again, through a 2-ice server. Maybe Tattoo Bola will be an issue. We didn't get an access there. Hoshiko flipping back to the non-digital side. It's not too bad to weave in and out. Again, if you're not making a good run, making a run every 2 turns technically gives you the most value.
Yep.
And at this point, card draw is a bit less interesting because I think, like, there's almost 15 cards on the table. That's like a third of the deck.
Yeah.
Like, we're set up. This is relatively quick. As much as the corporation, this is also a big thing, right? If you're not jamming in remote servers, you allow the runner to do something like this. You're not presenting issues until the install advance.
Yeah, and you're letting them spend their time setting up because you're not pressuring them.
Yes.
Now, forcing them to take dangerous runs.
That being said, defensive upgrades, there are really good ways that you can still win the late game. There's definitely some work to do here, but it can be done by AgInfusion, let alone Brandon, if anyone. So we'll see here. Counting through the cards in hand, we have a healthy hand after the spin doctor. So understanding how soon we want to transition to remote server. We're going to have to score 3 agendas no matter what. We're going to start with the Your Digital Life.
Of course.
One of those was put back with the spin doctor.
Yeah, it's a big chunk of money.
23. Again, I think 8 credits is the most expensive from the deck, but there's a lot of 8s and 7s. Second ice on HQ. You need that to respect.
Yeah, there we go. That's pretty good. Pretty good.
Plays around Hippo, let alone plays around Hermes. And you see there, like, that's a really big thing. Chromatically is holding the Hippo in hand. Doesn't want to show it until the turn it's going to matter.
Not at all, no.
Yeah. We got something in the remote server. Rashida or an agenda is the likely case. And I think if you have an agenda here, it's safer in the remote server. So I think you want to push it regardless.
Yeah, it seems like it.
That's right. Big fermenter.
Ticking up all those tokens.
Started turns for days. Man, how are we going to put somewhere? But a lot of money there on the fermenter as well. 13 credits, still liberated. And a lot of times you'll keep that for a rainy day fund.
Yeah.
You don't need 17 this turn potentially, so you don't have to take it until you're going to do something with it. That is, you know, it's a very big Netrunner skill. A lot of players see money, play money. That's not always what you need to be doing.
That's right. That's right. We saw that with Brandon discarding a hedge fund, for example. Like, sometimes that's not the best card in your hand, even though it often feels like it.
Cleaver as well, going to come down cheaper with the Paladin Puemo. That sets up the full breaker suite. And while Tattoo Bola is a very interesting ice, it only costs 1 credit. That also does help the Unity, which is now boosting 1 for 3. There's a Hippo. I think we're going to see a run this turn.
All right.
Finally charging the twinning using the Paladin credits. Again, first time you spend money off of a card that's installed, it gets a twinning charge.
Yep.
And now you can sweep almost, well, not all of HQ, but you can see like 5 on R&D because the way Wake-In
And
works.
correct me if I'm wrong, you can use Wake Implant plus twinning in the same access.
Yep. No reason not to. So that we'll see again. You can see up to 3 extra off Wake and 2 extra off twinning. I think Brandon lost a card.
Yep.
We got that back. So now we have 3 clicks left here, whether we want to be aggressive or not. Again, it's going to be really hard to contest the remote server. So Steven understands that if he's going to win the game, it's going to be off centrals. And he has so much built-in central pressure. Running archives here, forcing a potentially ugly res to stop the Hoshiko value. But Tattoo Bola,
not that ugly.
Not too bad. 2 credits will bounce. Again, a new card from Atomic Initiative. Finding a barrier you want to play in Techie, let alone an economy card as well, is such a nice inclusion.
Yeah, exactly. And it's such a good card. It's not a huge taxing ice, but it is a very effective piece of ice.
Good.
And it works so well with so many different IDs and so many different effects because swapping is now installing, which we have to keep in mind.
We're drawing even deeper there. Cleaver's still in hand, Hippo on the table. Brandon has something in the remote server. While you can put 3, oh, there's a purge. just dropping the fermenter and the leech down, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So the fermenter's going to reset. Still going to get the start of turn triggers. We did not get an access, so Hoshiko maintains her corporeal status.
That's right. She is not currently a magical girl.
And there's the cleaver again. Very methodical play. You've seen this so far on Steven's side through Swiss as well. Getting one install a turn. There's all these like, little kind of mini games that you're doing, all these goals, and we're running HQ at Teeny.
Yes, sir. There is a flow, there's a rhythm to playing as Hoshiko and playing with Paladin twinning. All right, so let's see how the Atini is dealt with. So we are at threat 6 at the moment, so it's fully active.
It's just 3 net damage, but we can break that. Unity boost 1 for 3.
And then Hippo, of course,
going to pull that down. Now that puts Brandon only to 14 credits, so Tattoo Bowl in the innermost, not too expensive. You're going to get 4 credits back. With this access, we can flush 3 cards out of R&D.
Oh, man.
2 cards in hand, one of them being a steel skin. We don't have to worry about Fuji, let alone we would win if you hit a Fuji here.
Yep. All right, so we're swapping the Tattoo Bola with a face down card. We gain
4 credits.
Money from it. I hope I remembered to do that.
No, for sure.
Okay.
Dreamnet Fires as well. That's just a card draw. Again, so many triggers here, and we'll see again. We have up to 2 more we can see from the twinning. That's most of the hand. You do know there's a Tattoo Bola in there guaranteed. Just a handshake.
Oh, just a handshake. Oh, man. I forgot that's how it ended.
Oh, yo. So there's a small chance that it doesn't cost the game. I think he only had 2 agendas in there. It'd be pretty unlikely, but I think he understands things are going really poorly for him here.
Yes, I think so.
Oh, good game to both players.
Yeah, great game. I had a great time oracling for Brandon as well. Like, I'd recommend it if you are like an intermediate level player who wants to experience, high level play like Brandon is capable of. I'm not trying to talk down about myself. No, wait, I am.
Just attach your horse to a faster cart.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm riding his coattails all the way to the top tables, and I was so happy to do that.
No, Brandon's not out, mind you. This is only the first round.
This is the first loss.
So I'm excited to see if we're going to have more Brandon on camera here. But that AgInfusion deck, the 59, I think that deck performed out of the 2 decks he brought. That was the one that was doing worse for him.
Probably. I think his Arisana deck was really, really interesting. I loved oracling that especially.
Yes. But obviously, Steven understanding that matchup, playing as slow as he needs to, building in that late game pressure, putting in the multi-axis right where it hurts, not running too quickly to kind of, get those ices res.
And taking advantage of the kind of slow pace of the Corp as well to set up to not be forced into runs. Yeah. And that great way that he was pile shuffling, I think we can all appreciate that as well.
Well played to both players. Again, we have a couple more rounds. Again, neither of these players are out, but half of the players will now be on their final life of the top 8. Right. And tune in. We'll be back in just a moment. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.
Ciao. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Top Cut Netrunner is always some of my favorite Netrunner. As soon as you start playing with open deck lists, the game changes a fair bit. And it's kind of counterintuitive, but things like bluffing are actually a bit more important. When both the players understand what all the possibilities can be on the table, you end up in a game that's more like chess sometimes. Yet still, the unknown cards, the fact that I know what you know, and so I can use that against you, and I can do that. You know how it goes. It can get pretty interesting. Huge shout out to Chromatically. That's the 2nd time so far we've seen him in the series put on an absolute clinic of impeccable Hoshiko play. And of course, again, huge shout out to Brandon, to the King. He's been having an immense couple competitive seasons of Netrunner, playing just about in every large tournament he can get to. And I'm so stoked that he took the time to come down to Montreal. Well played. It's a bit of a shame we didn't get to see his Arisana on camera, and he's playing really clean, really aggressive Trojan Arisana. And that is probably my favorite archetype going on right now. Again, also thank you to Patrick, who is oracling all weekend, helping run the event, joining for commentary as well. Huge thank you to allow all this great stuff to be possible. And speaking about allow this to be possible, thank you to all these names here. These are just some of the patrons that help support the Metropole Grid on Patreon. This video editing, this whole series, it takes a lot of time, and it's largely only possible because of the very gracious donations from all these folks. So thank you so much for supporting Netrunner content. And of course, to all the Daily Cast patrons as well, your support is incredibly appreciated. That's largely it. Worlds should be over right now. Wow, wasn't that amazing? Go back, check the VOD if you can. It should be still up on Twitch or on YouTube on the Null Signal Games YouTube channel. So hopefully you had a great time. Maybe even you won. Well done. Thanks so much for watching.